I realize most of my videos start with me saying I've been thinking lately, and for this video I wanna do a bit. I wanna do it a bit differently. I wanna tell you what I've been doing lately instead of what I've been thinking lately. So what I've been doing lately, especially after I made the video about how I wanna be an artist, is really just trying to create. And right now what that looks like is I don't know what I'm creating. I just create whatever is most pertinent in the moment. And what that means is in the morning when I wake up, which is around 10 a.m, I would typically do at least one of these two things. Write in my morning pages, which is something that I picked up from the Artist Way quite a few years back. Basically, you just write stream of thought, stream of conscious writing, just write for 3 pages. Mine is an A5 book. Just write 3 pages, and then that would get out most of the gunk that's kind of like stuck in your head, so that you can actually put forth the thoughts that want to come out and not just things that you feel like you have to do, or the worries that are on your mind that's kind of like stopping you from making anything. I find that quite helpful. I've modified it slightly over the years. I don't do entirely stream of conscious writing. I do prune out some thoughts a little bit, but that's because it's what's more useful for me. If I write truly stream of consciousness, sometimes I get stuck in spirals that are not always very helpful. So that's why I do it the way I do. So most days I'll do that, but not every time, because like I said, it's modified to what suits me. I don't feel the need to do this every day all the time. But what I've been trying to do every day, and what I've done every day since I came back from Seoul, except for one day, which I'll talk about a bit later, is draw in a sketchbook equivalent of the morning pages. So morning pages, if you read The Artist Way by Julia Cameron, you write in a notebook 3 pages of words. A lot of people don't really read back what they write because that's not really the point. The point is that you just write it. Is to get the stuff out from your head onto a surface so you can kind of move on with it, and to kind of not judge yourself about it. So I've been trying to do an equivalent of that, but in image form on a different book. So it's a sketchbook, and I've drawn something on a page. So I've drawn 1 page daily since I came back from Seoul. I don't know whether I'll ever show that sketchbook. I've been flip-flopping on that. I guess you guys will know if I ever show it on my sketchbook. Show you guys my sketchbook. But I've drawn in it almost every day. A lot of it is just bad, but that's okay, because the main point is that you get it out. And I think even in just getting stuff out, there is stuff to be observed from that. So I mentioned just now that there was one day that I didn't draw in it, and that one day in itself, it's also something specifically for me, because I think I have a tendency to fall into rigidity, a tendency to be like, oh, I've told myself that I'm gonna do this thing every day, so I will do it every single day, even if I like realistically like just shouldn't do it because I'm not in the mood for it. I don't have the energy for it. Like I think it really depends on what kind of person you are. If you're somebody who is not very good with sticking to routines, maybe the right thing to do is to just ignore those thoughts and actually do the thing anyway. But I have the opposite problem, in which I tend to get too stuck up inside a routine that I've set up. Even if it doesn't serve me that day, I will still do it. And so the thing that I needed to do, the thing that I needed to learn, which is the opposite of my natural inclination, is to actually just allow myself to not draw in it on a day in which I did not particularly have the energy to do it, or like in which I would be forcing myself to draw and I was actually not Like my body was saying like, no, don't draw. Like it was like 11 p.m. I wasn't in the mood to draw already. I just wanted to like lie in bed. So the nurturing thing for me was to not draw, but that may not be the case for everybody. And it took me quite a while to accept that like I am not the person who actually should be encouraging themselves to overcome the negative talk and draw on a day when I don't feel like drawing. What I've come to realize is I'm in fact the person that needs a push in the opposite direction to be like, no, take that day off. So that's what I did on that one day. For all the other days, I've drawn on one page of the sketchbook. What's been interesting to observe is I switch a lot between different mediums. I've drawn in pencil, I've drawn in pen, I've drawn with markers, I've drawn with watercolor paints, acrylic paint, pastels, so there's 6 so far. I did some collages in which I stuck stuff onto the page, and I think that's about it. So about 7 forms of it, and this is in like about 1 month and like maybe 1 week. So that's been interesting to observe. Another thing in general is from me trying to lean into this kind of chaotic routine. So I've not even begun to move past what I do in the morning. So after what I do in the morning, which is this, it's usually lunchtime by then, so I'll eat lunch. And then I'll typically escape from the living room because my dad takes a nap in the afternoon and he snores, and I almost can't do anything when he's snoring because it takes me out of my focus. So unfortunately my laptop is situated in the living room, and you might be thinking, it's a laptop, why can't you bring it in and like, you know, somewhere else? And I can, but like it's not very conducive to do stuff on my laptop in my bed. And like I also can't paint elsewhere. My desk is in the living room, so that's where I do most of my creative things, my creation, whether it's editing videos, whether it's writing on a laptop, whether it's writing in a notebook. Some of this stuff are slightly more movable, like anything that's in a notebook that's just pen and paper, I can shift to do it in my room. My room doesn't have a proper table. We do have like a breakfast table thing that you can put on a bed that we used to work from home when COVID shutdown happened a few years ago. So sometimes I do work on that as a table, but it's limited. My desk is more spacious. I can paint and do stuff on it and like not worry about it spilling. So I do feel a bit annoyed sometimes when my means and modes of expression get a bit limited by the fact that I can't stand the sound in the living room and I gotta go into my bedroom. But we roll with what we have. So so after lunch, typically I will exit myself from the living room where my desk is, so that kind of puts a limit on the kind of creative things I can do. But there are a few things that I can still do which is away from my desk. So some of it involve things like filming stuff, especially for my doll videos where I don't need the audio and I can just shut myself inside my room. So that's what I do sometimes. I can edit on my laptop in my room if I want to, so that's what I do some other times. I can write either on my laptop or on my notebook inside my bedroom. That's another option. Sometimes I just listen to albums with my earphones and lie on the bed and just like enjoy the music without anything else. Just listen to a whole album in full with my eyes closed. But that's not really creation necessarily. And then by then usually, you know, tea time rolls around. I'll eat some stuff, and then the evening is kind of like I'll go back to my desk. Usually this is when I end up editing stuff, or if I've taken photographs, which is another thing that I can do in my room, of my dolls. I will edit photos in the evening. Sometimes I will pick up one of my dolls and do face-ups. Sometimes this is when I would do my daily art sketchbook because I didn't get to it in the morning. So this kind of like about 4 to 5 p.m. is relatively productive in a way. Like I do create stuff during this time, but it's also like a relatively short window before dinner. So it really depends on what's like the thing that calls me to do it the most that day, if that makes sense. Like the thing that I most want to finish that day, or the thing that I most want to spend time doing that day. And I think that's the thing that I've been trying to really lean in, to let that feeling of, not that I want to see the final product guide me, not let that feeling of the end point guide me, but to kind of let the feeling of like, I genuinely want to spend this time right now doing this particular thing, and that's what I'll do, right? So if that thing is face up, great. If that thing is editing videos, great. If that thing is filming videos or whatever, that will be what I'll do. So I really try to let that be my guidance recently for the last month or so. Which is... Oh, I forgot one thing. So sometimes I would watch videos and I'll put down notes into a note-taking interface on my computer. So I've been learning about mainly astrology recently. It was human design a few months back. Also a little bit about poems, because I don't read poems, but strangely enough, that has kind of been the thing that kind of wants to be written lately, and I'm very ill-equipped to do it. But yeah, so then dinner, and then after dinner I probably just watch some videos. I watch videos throughout the day actually, and then shower, and then usually by the time it's like later in the evening, like after 9, the house will be slightly quieter, and that's when I kind of get my productive streak back again to do something. So writing, I wrote a few fanfics recently. I've written a few drafts of various poems that I think are quite horrible, so I don't know what I'm going to do with them. They're just there. But I think the process of contending with the words, with what I'm feeling, and also kind of just observing what I've actually written and like figuring out what I'm trying to say, that, you know, finds it so difficult to come out in any form other than a poem, which is kind of like, it's kind of like a 3-year-old trying to wield a very heavy axe. It's like not a very wieldy instrument for what I'm trying to do, but I've decided not to question it. Like, if that's the way that the creation wants to come out of me, then so be it, as long as I don't injure myself in the process. You know, I'll let that 3-year-old me play with the axe, metaphorically. So you know, and trust that, like, even at 3 years old, I know how to protect myself, or that, you know, any injury that I might sustain will be fixable. So this is all metaphorical, by the way. And so that has been kind of what I've been doing. And every day looks a bit different. There are some days where I almost don't create anything at all, except the morning pages or daily sketchbook, because there are some days where I just need to rest. But on the days where I do stuff, I do quite a bit. I think the thing that's been interesting to observe now that I'm actually letting my body or my intuition, I don't know what to call it, but like letting what is innately in me guide this creation process. It's been interesting to observe the patterns, so to speak. And the pattern is kind of that I don't really stick to any one thing in particular. It's not like I only draw, it's not like I only write. And even within the realm of writing, it's not like I only write, like, say, poems, or I only write, like, short stories, which are generally what the fanfics are. I've also written some originals, bits and pieces, but they are like stubs of story, really. And there's a lot of stuff that I've done that like basically haven't seen the world. And that's fine, because I think right now what I need is to find a process that works for me, in which I enjoy that creation process, and I learn how to differentiate like what is enjoyment of the creation process to me and what is not. So that has been that, but it's I think it has really been in a way all over the place, but there is a kind of somewhat consistent repertoire that I kind of switch around between. So I feel like this is probably where the whole notion of like you gotta find your niche and stick to it, or you gotta like find one skill and kind of niche down, become skillful in it, really doesn't fit how I actually like to work. And by work here I mean create, because honestly, I don't mind using the word work, but I don't want to bring the capitalistic notion back into it, which is why I'm trying to use the word create. I don't mind the word work, because I think it's really just about putting in the effort to do the work, to do the thing. What I would like to do is like I would like to remove the notion that this work has to be valuable to basically anybody other than yourself, really. And I think that is something that I will eventually get to, figuring out how I can value my creation as not just for valuable to me, but valuable to a bigger context. But I think that is not where I'm supposed to be at right now. I don't think that's what I'm contending with at the moment, so I'm happy to leave it for a different time, I think. So a lot of whatever I've been creating lately has really just been, it's a bit like a zoo animal that has never been in the wild now being released into the wild and trying to figure out how instincts work, I think. So it's a bit weird. I have a lot of different thoughts, and some of them are not really in words, but like just feelings or just a kind of mood, and I don't always know how to put it down. So I think the reason why I spread across so many different mediums is also because I consume a lot of different medium. They're not one-to-one. Like, I don't consume exactly the same stuff that I make, and I don't make exactly the same stuff that I consume, but there's some overlaps in it, and there are some things that kind of lend itself to other stuff. So like, for example, I consume a lot of music, but not poems. But I don't make music, and for some reason I have a need to write poems at the moment. So that's weird. But then at the same time, I read a lot of fiction. I read a lot of fiction, and I've been getting back into reading fiction lately. And I also write fiction. So yeah, I mean, it's not one-to-one. I watch a lot of videos, like especially on YouTube. I make videos also on YouTube, but not quite of the same genre. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't fully made sense of my own creative process. necessarily, but I think it's okay and normal that it's quite messy right now. I think there is just a process, like just a stage that I have to be in at the moment. I don't think it's wrong. And I think part of my growth, actually, my personal growth, is really that like I am actually even okay with being messy about it. That I'm not like just trying to escape this messy stage and get quickly to the next one, which is the completion, when I've, let's say, finally figured out this is the correct medium for me to gain mastery in, or that this is the one thing that I will be spending the majority of my time trying to improve myself on. Like even the idea that there is one thing that I should learn to master is kind of like there is a preconceived end goal in mind, and I think right now I'm not doing that. Like I don't want to do that. I want to just allow myself to create, because in the current present moment I want to do that thing, right? Like I want to just do and make stuff that I want to do in that moment. It's like why put it off till later? Why wait to only enjoy the fruits of your labor later and suffer now because you want to enjoy something later? It's like how I used to go to school, and then actually I would just be waiting for the time that I will be done with school, and then I can actually finally draw or play the guitar or read my many library books that I borrowed. And then so the whole like half a day that I'll be in school, I'll be wishing that I was in the later half of the day. And then when I was in the later half of the day, I did enjoy the day because I would be doing what I want to do. But then like when I became an adult working, it feels like that school half a day thing became like a whole day, most of the whole day. And then it became like 5 days of the week, and I'll just be wishing for the weekend to be here. And then somehow it got to a point where I couldn't, even when the weekend came around, I wasn't enjoying the present moment of the weekend, and then I was just too tired to kind of enjoy it. And then yeah, it just feels like this delay of gratification has been getting out of hand. so yeah, as much as I've been trying to do things by just creating whatever speaks to me in that moment, and also I think too, letting go of the judgment that it needs to be good. I've made a lot of bad things lately, and I'm also still trying to be okay with the fact that I make bad stuff. Like there's a temptation to just not make the stuff instead of making bad stuff, but then like doing the daily sketchbook has made me realize that there's pages within it that are quite bad by whatever metric I'm using to judge it. But without those bad pages, there are subsequent pages that would not have been able to be drawn because they made use of maybe a certain method of painting or a certain technique that I haven't tried until I made that ugly page a few pages ago. Like the process of making that bad thing allowed me to make a thing that was a bit less bad afterwards, and I would not have been able to do that if I did not make the bad art in the first place. So I've been also trying to become a bit more comfortable with that. Another thing is also, I guess, trying to be comfortable with like sharing bad art. The Underbelly poem is one. Yeah. So yeah, that's been what I've been doing lately. It's not all rosy. Like there's a lot of uncertainty, and also kind of like moments where I really like question, am I doing the right thing? Letting myself be so self-indulgent in a way to just create for no one other than myself. But it's like if I don't do it now, then when would I get to do this? I will just keep delaying it until I die. You know, so yeah, that's been what I've been doing. And what I just did, like maybe 1 hour ago, was at the library I borrowed quite a few books, some fiction, and also I borrowed a few books on poetry because, like I was saying just now, I don't read poetry, so I have no idea what a good or bad one is and what enjoying one even means. And I don't know whether I'll enjoy reading poetry, or rather I know there are some poetry that I don't enjoy reading. I don't know whether I can find any that I would enjoy, but I guess we'll find out. So I borrowed a bunch of books related to poetry and writing, and maybe I'll hate them, but at least I've bothered to kind of wade in and try and figure that out, because for some reason I guess it's a question that is relevant to me at this point. So yeah, that's the current update, I guess. Alright, I'll see you next time. Bye.